2026 didn't begin quietly for LENAMIU. It began with a confirmation that instantly shifted the conversation across fandoms and industry circles alike. When Channel 3 officially announced LENAMIU's next major project, the reaction was immediate and intense. Within minutes, social media timelines filled with excitement, speculation, and a single recurring phrase, "This feels bigger than expected." For a long time, LENAMIU had been building momentum in a way that felt steady rather than loud. Each appearance, each project, each interaction with fans seemed intentional, almost carefully paced. So when Channel 3 stepped forward to confirm their return together in a new major production, it didn't feel like a surprise, but it did feel like a turning point. This wasn't just another project. It felt like a statement. What truly caught fans off guard, however, was how closely this announcement became linked to the global impact of My Safe Zone. Originally embraced as a deeply emotional work, My Safe Zone grew beyond its initial scope. Fans around the world connected with its themes of comfort, vulnerability, and quiet resilience. People didn't just watch it, they carried it with them. Quotes were shared, scenes were analyzed, and personal stories began surfacing about how the project helped viewers through difficult moments. By early 2026, it became clear that My Safe Zone was no longer just content. It had become a shared emotional language between LENAMIU and their audience. So when Channel 3 referenced this impact while confirming their new project, fans understood the message immediately. This next chapter wasn't meant to erase what came before. It was meant to build on it. Industry insiders began to speak quietly about the scale of the new production. While details were kept under wraps, one thing was consistently mentioned: trust. Channel 3 wasn't just investing in LENAMIU's popularity, but in their ability to carry a story that resonates deeply and travels far beyond domestic borders. This trust says a lot about where LENAMIU now stands in the industry. Fans noticed a shift in LENAMIU themselves. Interviews felt calmer, more grounded. Their words carried confidence without arrogance. They spoke less about proving themselves and more about responsibility to the story, to the audience, and to the emotions they were about to portray. It was clear they understood the weight of expectations, but they weren't overwhelmed by it. International attention followed quickly. Overseas fan bases revisited My Safe Zone, introducing it to new audiences who hadn't discovered it during its initial release. Subtitles spread, discussion threads multiplied, and the phrase LENAMIU 2026 began trending alongside global fandom tags. This wasn't driven by marketing alone, it was driven by genuine emotional attachment. What makes this moment especially powerful is that it doesn't feel rushed. There's no sense of chasing trends or capitalizing on temporary hype. Instead, LENAMIU appear to be stepping into a phase where their choices are aligned with their growth. They're no longer just reacting to opportunities, they're shaping them. As filming preparations move forward, fans are left with anticipation rather than anxiety. There's excitement, yes, but also trust. Trust that whatever LENAMIU are about to present will carry the same sincerity that made My Safe Zone resonate so deeply. Trust that Channel 3 understands the scale of what they're handling. And trust that 2026 isn't just another year on the calendar, but the beginning of a defining era. If the early signs are anything to go by, this project won't just be remembered for its ratings or headlines. It will be remembered for how it made people feel and for how LENAMIU quietly, confidently claimed 2026 as their own. As the weeks passed after the announcement, the silence around the project only made the anticipation stronger. Channel 3 revealed very little, and LENAMIU themselves remained carefully reserved. But fans began to notice the smallest details: subtle schedule changes, quiet trips abroad, cryptic captions that felt too intentional to ignore. It was clear that something meaningful was taking shape behind closed doors. What stood out most was how often My Safe Zone continued to be referenced, not just by fans, but by people within the industry. Directors, writers, and even fellow actors spoke about it as a benchmark, an example of how storytelling could feel intimate while still reaching a massive audience. For LENAMIU, this wasn't just praise. It was pressure. And yet, instead of pulling back, they seemed to lean into it. Sources close to the production hinted that the new project would explore emotional territory even deeper than before. Not louder, not more dramatic, just more honest. The kind of story that doesn't rely on shock, but on connection. That alone set it apart in an era where spectacle often overshadows substance. Fans began to speculate that this was exactly why Channel 3 placed such confidence in LENAMIU. They had already proven they could carry silence, stillness, and vulnerability without losing the audience. Meanwhile, the global fandom continued to grow in unexpected ways. Viewers from different countries started sharing how My Safe Zone helped them through loneliness, burnout, or personal loss. Some described watching it late at night as a form of comfort. Others said it reminded them that it was okay to slow down. These weren't promotional posts. They were personal confessions. And LENAMIU noticed. In one rare comment during a public appearance, one of them mentioned feeling humbled by how far the message had traveled. That single word spread quickly. Humbled. Not overwhelmed, not burdened. It suggested maturity, a readiness to accept the responsibility that comes with influence. Fans interpreted this as a sign that the upcoming project wouldn't simply aim to outperform their last success, but to honor it. By mid-2026, discussions shifted from what is the project to what does this era represent. People began calling it LENAMIU's transition phase, the moment where they stopped being defined by breakout success and started being defined by intention. Fashion choices reflected this shift too. Their public appearances felt more refined, less experimental, as if they finally knew exactly who they were presenting to the world. Channel 3's strategy reinforced that idea. Instead of flooding media with teasers, they allowed the story to breathe. They trusted curiosity. And curiosity worked. Every small update became a headline. Every appearance became a moment. The industry took note of how powerful restraint could be when paired with genuine audience trust. What makes this chapter different is that it feels shared. Fans don't feel like observers waiting to be impressed. They feel like participants who've grown alongside LENAMIU. From My Safe Zone to this new, unnamed project, there's a clear emotional through line, a promise that the story will matter. As 2026 continues to unfold, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. This isn't just a comeback or a new role. It's a consolidation of everything LENAMIU has learned so far. The mistakes, the growth, the quiet nights when success felt distant, and the unexpected moments when it arrived all at once. And when the project finally premieres, it likely won't need to announce its importance. The audience will already know. Because long before the first scene airs, LENAMIU have already proven something rare, that true impact doesn't come from noise, but from meaning. By the time the first official teaser was finally scheduled, the atmosphere around LENAMIU had completely changed. This was no longer curiosity driven by rumor, it was trust built over time. Fans weren't asking for proof anymore. They were ready to receive whatever story LENAMIU chose to tell next. Behind the scenes, industry insiders quietly described the production as one of Channel 3's most emotionally focused projects in years. The script, they said, wasn't designed to trend for a week and disappear. It was written to linger. Scenes were structured around pauses, unspoken thoughts, and the kind of emotional realism that doesn't beg for attention but demands it. That alone explained why casting LENAMIU felt inevitable. Their strength had never been about exaggeration, it was about restraint. What surprised many was how involved LENAMIU reportedly became during preparation. Rather than treating the role as another career step, they immersed themselves in the characters' emotional worlds. They asked questions. They listened. They adjusted. This level of engagement signaled something important. They weren't just protecting their image, they were protecting the story. As filming progressed, subtle signs continued to surface. A familiar bracelet spotted again. A late-night cafe visit that mirrored a scene fans remembered from My Safe Zone. A short handwritten note shared online with no context, only a line about finding calm in chaos. Each moment reignited discussion, not as scandal, but as reflection. Fans weren't theorizing about romance or conflict, they were theorizing about meaning. International attention followed naturally. Streaming platforms began showing interest even before official distribution talks were confirmed. Media outlets started framing LENAMIU not just as stars, but as cultural carriers, actors capable of exporting emotional narratives across borders. That shift mattered. It marked the point where their work was no longer viewed as regional success, but global relevance. Public appearances during this period felt different too. Interviews became quieter, more thoughtful. When asked about pressure, LENAMIU didn't deny it, but they reframed it. Pressure, they said, meant people were listening. And when people are listening, you choose your words carefully. As release day approached, fans noticed something unusual. There was no attempt to recreate the magic of My Safe Zone. No callbacks, no imitation. Instead, there was a quiet confidence that this story would stand on its own. That decision alone spoke volumes. It showed growth, not just professionally, but creatively. In online communities, longtime supporters began sharing timelines of LENAMIU's journey, from early uncertainty to breakout success, and now to a phase defined by clarity. New fans joined those discussions, drawn not by hype, but by consistency. The narrative around LENAMIU had matured, and so had the audience. What lies ahead now feels less like a question and more like a continuation. The new project isn't positioned as a test, but as a statement. A declaration that storytelling can still be gentle, intentional, and powerful in a fast-moving industry. And when the lights finally dim for the premiere, the impact won't be measured only by ratings or charts. It will be measured by what lingers after the screen goes dark, the silence, the reflection, the feeling of having been understood. That has always been LENAMIU's quiet strength. And in 2026, it's becoming their legacy. Long after the premiere buzz begins to settle, something deeper remains. Viewers don't rush to summarize the story in quick posts or dramatic clips. Instead, they pause. They rewatch certain scenes. They talk about how a single look lasted longer than a confession, how silence carried more weight than dialogue. That reaction alone confirms what many already suspected. This project was never meant to be loud. It was meant to be felt. For LENAMIU, this moment represents a turning point that cannot be undone. They are no longer defined by speculation or past success, but by intention. Every choice they make now feels deliberate. From the way they speak about their characters to how they distance themselves from unnecessary noise, there is a sense of control that only comes with maturity in the industry. Industry analysts begin to point out something else as well. Brands are watching differently. Endorsements are no longer centered on image alone, but on credibility. LENAMIU's names start appearing in conversations about long-term partnerships, prestige campaigns, and projects that require emotional trust. This is the kind of influence that doesn't fade after a season. It compounds. Fans notice the shift too. Support becomes quieter, more loyal. Instead of chasing every rumor, they focus on protecting the work. Fan projects center around themes, quotes, and emotional impact rather than speculation. It's a rare evolution in modern fandom, and it reflects the tone LENAMIU themselves have set. Even Channel 3's internal approach appears to change. Executives speak less about numbers and more about legacy. They reference this project as a benchmark, a reminder that when storytelling is handled with care, the audience responds with respect. That kind of success cannot be manufactured. It has to be earned. As months pass, international conversations grow. Subtitles appear in multiple languages faster than expected. Overseas fanbases organize screenings, discussions, and charity projects inspired by the story's themes. My Safe Zone is no longer just a title from the past. It becomes a reference point for emotional safety, healing, and connection across cultures. LENAMIU, however, remain grounded. They do not over-explain. They do not capitalize recklessly. When asked what comes next, their answers are simple: rest, reflection, and choosing stories that matter. That restraint becomes their signature. In an industry obsessed with speed, LENAMIU choose depth. In a space driven by trends, they choose meaning. And in 2026, that choice is what sets them apart. The story doesn't end here. It doesn't need to. Because some journeys aren't about dramatic conclusions, they're about steady presence, quiet growth, and leaving behind something real. And for LENAMIU, this chapter isn't the peak. It's the foundation.